This is the end of the Canadian block for today. There's one more Canadian tomorrow. All right. Social media. We all use it extensively, especially Greg Gifford. Do we really use it? Oh, now I know where he is. Do we really use it well? So here's your typical Facebook post, right? 20% off cheesy weezy potatoes on Wednesdays. But really, a lot of social media right now is an old medium slapped onto a new product. It's a digital billboard. You could put that post anywhere, and it would make perfect sense. The social media rule book that we have is not necessarily thinking about social media from what it is, but from what it used to be, from what advertising used to be. It's not about the tactical implementation at that moment you hit post. It's about what you're trying to say and who thinks you're worthy of your time. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, I can't wait to engage my favorite brand on Facebook, right? I mean, who here wakes up in the morning and grabs their phone and opens social media? You're all lying, come on. I know you do this, right? And you're flicking through and you're like, oh, cute cat, BuzzFeed. I can't believe that happened in the election, or the election campaign. Canadians were very scared for you. All right, and you flip through that, but you're never like, I'm gonna go see what my local Chipotle has posted. People don't engage with it in that way. Right? Why does it take, bad user experiences happen everywhere. Why does it take 14 days to remove you from a mailing list when you unsubscribe? Why do I have to call you to get information when, frankly, I'd rather text? Nobody enjoys the phone. Why, when you have given away my U-Haul reservation, and I tweet at U-Haul saying, you suck, and then U-Haul Cares writes back and is like, hi, can you tell us the details of your problem? Like, Cares is the last thing you think U-Haul is associated with in that moment. And U-Haul is not the only brand. It's just, I'm picking on it because this recently happened to someone who worked at Kickpoint. But, Comcast cares, do they? Right? And so why are you making me do this? Why are you making these experiences happen on a foundation of what makes sense for your company instead of what makes sense for your market? Right? Why are you approaching that from a me first perspective? Ross just talked about this too. What's working for you is not necessarily what's working for your market. We need to rewire how we approach social media and start with the market in mind. We need to stop starting our ideation process with a billboard. If I say to you, picture an ad, do you picture a TV ad? Do you picture a billboard, something in the newspaper? That's still, Or do you think about things like a really cool Facebook post or an interesting tweet? Where is your mind go when I say the word advertising to you? So instead of starting with that billboard, start with the people who are actually advertising to. Even the words that we use to describe social media metrics are all wrong. Audience, like you're in the crowd, and I'm talking to you, but you can't talk back. Quite similar to what's happening at this exact moment, except you're tweeting. I'm going to see it soon. Impressions. Think of the TV ad, right? I'm one-way conversation. Reach, as in how many irrelevant people just scrolled on right past your post. Those are the words that we use to describe social media. And what ends up happening is these aren't strategic metrics, they're tactical metrics. I'm going to dive into that a little bit more in a minute. But they steer us down the path of paying attention to the noise instead of the signal. So what happened to social media, right? When it first came out, MySpace, for example, right? Zanga, that blogging platform, LiveJournal, if we're really going way back, right? News groups, Marketers have lost sight of what made social media so exciting in the first place, which is, I can talk to you and you can talk to me. And instead, we're trying to mold social media into forms in which we feel familiar. The billboard, the radio ad, the TV ad. But that doesn't mean that the opposite is true. I don't necessarily mean like only high fives and group hugs on social media from now on. Like, we're here to make money. Let's be honest. Or other noble organization goals if you work for a not-for-profit or a charity. So how do you get away from that billboard and move into social? So first, I want you to think about how our brains are changing in this digital world. And I have a story for you. And I think there's been other stories about how things are changing, and this is a funny one that a friend told me. So she went to the store, she had to replace a light switch in her house, went to Home Depot, bought the light switch, put it on the dining room table, and her 6-year-old walks in and says, "Mom, what's that?" And she says, "Oh, it's a light switch." So he picks it up, and he flicks it, and he looks at the lights, and says, "Oh, it doesn't work. What, you just bought this." And she says, "No, honey, it needs to be attached." And he says, "Why?" Because everything in his life is wireless, right? Laptop, iPad, you know. I heard from another friend that his TV is covered with tiny child fingerprints because they keep trying to swipe it like it's an iPad, right? Because why not? Why wouldn't you do that, right? That makes sense to us because we're old, but it doesn't make sense to them. You know, our brains are changing, and kids are just getting there faster than us, but we're all catching up. It's all gonna happen. More recently, I have a story where I picked up the phone book and I looked for a search box, the physical phone book. Like, no, that's not how that works, Dana, right? But our brains are changing from an analog to digital. And yeah, the millennials are there first, and we can talk about marketing millennials all day, like there's some giant group. But when it comes down to it, our brains are becoming digital. So here's another example of that. Vertical video sucks, right? How many times have people said that? "Ugh, vertical video, I hate it." Well, why do you hate it? Well, it's because the implementation sucks of vertical video. YouTube hates vertical video. Facebook, totally cool with it, right? Snapchat, also cool with it. YouTube, vertical video on YouTube feels like it's your parents who are like, no, this is how we do it, right? YouTube and how they handle video is an analog signal tossed into this digital medium. That's YouTube being a bunch of old farts about it. And actually the founders of YouTube, I looked them up, they're all like 3 years younger than me, so I'm an older fart. But it's horizontal because the founders grew up when you had to get up to change the channel on the TV, right? They grew up in a horizontal world, so of course all video should be horizontal, but that's not the case. Now, so vertical video is the most comfortable and easiest way to shoot video on a phone. Evidence. This is Beyonce. Who went to go see Beyonce on her tour? No one? Come on. Are you guys just quiet and tired? Well, I did, and it was awesome. All right, so this is Beyonce live in London. Please try to find the horizontal phones in this video. I can see, yeah, there's one over on the side. I like the selfie stick, which I think is turned to the side at this particular moment. And my real favorite is the guy who's taking a selfie. Like, he doesn't care that Beyonce is right behind him. He's like, my hair is on fleek right now. I'm taking a selfie. Right, that went through his mind, although in a British accent, because this is from Wembley. So these people don't care that YouTube is going to change their video later, right? And I mean, the ironic thing is that when I got this off of YouTube, it was somebody who clearly held their phone horizontally for 1 hour and 6 minutes to record this entire video. And it's shaky as hell, so I don't recommend watching it. But these people are annoyed at YouTube because they can't upload their cool videos. They're just going to put it on Snapchat, and you can actually see a couple of the interfaces, if you really zoom in, are actually Snapchat at that moment. So you go ahead and market with your billboards and your 30-second spots, and you're marketing to people who would rather turn their face into a taco or never, ever turn their phone to the side, even for Beyonce, right? Like, these people spent a lot of money on these seats. These are not the cheap seats. I was in the cheap seats. It was cold. Edmonton, May, iffy. So these are the people who don't care that you're making them do something. They're just going to go somewhere else. And the thing is that we're all turning digital. It's time to rewrite how you approach these mediums while you still can, and before your competition does, because they might be sitting in this room, listening to the same talk, getting there faster than you. So now that I've put fear in your heart, let's turn into what we recommend. So we put together a concept that we like to call SMUX, Social Media User Experience. And SMUX is not, Facebook is kind of crappy sometimes with their interface. SMUX is about how the individual market engages with the post. SMUX is about knowing when and how your market wants to pay attention to you, and then giving them what they want at that time. And it goes beyond personas and audience research. And personas, still hugely important. I don't want to diminish the importance of creating personas in any way. But one of the great things about social media is you can get a lot of data, and data leads to what we call attention research. Attention research is looking at what actually gets your market excited. What are they paying attention to? Hence the name. It's very scientific. So we use Rival IQ for attention research. There's a number of different ways to do it. We really like Rival for this. Rival IQ, if you're not familiar with it, and frankly you should be, it's fantastic. At its heart, it's a competitive research tool. You put in your site, you put in your competitor sites, and Rival says, hey, this other company had a breakout Instagram post, or they changed their title tag on their homepage. You can see if they're futzing with their SEO, or suddenly they're ranking for a whole bunch of keywords that they weren't before, right? But something else you can do with Rival IQ is you can put social media profiles in it. So when you go into Rival IQ, and they have a collection of companies that you put together called a landscape. When you go to create a landscape in Rival IQ, it says, you put in your landscape name, and then it says, please put in the website address. Well, instead of a website address, put in someone's Twitter handle, or their Facebook page, if they have lots of public posts, for example, or Pinterest, or Instagram. You can put any of those things in there, and Rival will evaluate it like it would for anything else. So I built a landscape of all the MozCon speakers to check them all out, and I only looked at Twitter for this, although there was it did grab a couple of Facebook pages for people, and it does this automatically. It grabbed a couple of Facebook pages, grabbed a couple of Instagrams, but in this case, I'm just looking at Twitter to keep the data set kind of simple. So here's one of the things that you can see, top landscape posts. So here's Rob at the top. He had the top post in August out of all the MozCon speakers, wherein he is asking Twitter to help build his deck for him. So good job, Rob. The second tweet is Zeph talking about PR and link building, and then Zeph again talking about the layouts at Moz. There's a lot of, and when you dig into these posts, and I think there's 1,060 posts, something like that, 1,090, something. One of those two numbers is correct. There's lots of interesting stuff in there. You can see about the kinds of engagement. It also tells you what the most popular hashtags were. What I learned from this is out of 1,000 posts, MozCon speakers don't use hashtags all that often. The most popular hashtag, MozCon, if you can imagine that. Post times as well. So it goes a little bit further than just figuring out when your market is active. On these charts, the blue line are my tweets, so you can see how inconsistent I am with my Twitter usage. And then the dotted line is the entire landscape, so all the MozCon speakers put together. And in Rival, you can do some filtering, so you could pull out a certain subset, so just the people talking about content marketing, for example. So you can see the activity by published hour, activity by published day, engagement rate, et cetera. And so you can see, for example, in this bottom left-hand chart, the engagement rate by published hour. See that funny little blip right at midnight Mountain Time? What's going on there? So apparently, the time to tweet MozCon speakers is midnight Mountain Time, 2 a.m. Eastern. Best engagement you're going to get. I don't know. Maybe Rob tweeted out that post super late, and that's why I got all the engagement. But these sorts of things, when you pull them together, create this foundation of attention research. What is making your market interesting? So think about taking a landscape of your best customers who happen to have Instagram accounts, for example, put them in Rival IQ, see what kinds of things are happening with their accounts. It's a deeper kind of research. Instead of calling them and saying, hello, when do you tweet? You just put it in there. And this research is really the foundation of SMUX. So we'll go back to that technically perfect post on Facebook. I could take that post and stick it on a billboard. There's an image, adorable potato, it's a call to action, some supporting text. Right? It's not very SMUXy. So maybe you posted it at the right time, and you used the right hashtags, and you read the 10 tips to a perfect post on Facebook, and you followed all those rules, but it's not enough. You need more to make a good SMUX. So, okay, Dana, what makes good SMUX? There's 6 elements to good SMUX: psychographics, analytics, platform, message, intent, and play. So I'm going to go through each of these. And I really want to encourage you to start your creative process from a SMUX first perspective. Let's stop pushing out billboard tweets. Let's start actually doing something really interesting with social media. So first off, psychographics. You may be familiar with this term if you spend any time working on personas. Chatelaine magazine in Canada did a segment called This is 40-ish, and you can look up the hashtag This is 40-ish. They interviewed 1,000 Canadian women between the ages of 35 and 45, my demographic group, and they asked them a lot of questions, some super easy ones like, do you look good naked? Do you consider yourself a feminist? Right? You just roll that off the tongue. The thing that I liked about it was that they did ask those hard questions, and they got some really interesting answers. So here's the answers to the questions. What makes you unique? And I really want you to watch this and pay attention to the variety of responses.
I reported you a lot of women that I know can outlast their kids, and I can keep up with them.
First of all, my height, I'm huge. I would say it's probably my sense of humor.
I like to walk through life with an I don't really care attitude.
I'm a fighter.
I'm bubbly. I'm a strong person, strong personality.
I had an eating disorder, and when I was in my teens and 20s, it was a really difficult experience I was really ashamed of, but now that I'm older, I really understand what happened, and it's something that I'm most grateful for.
I think that people can depend on me for no bullshit.
People always assume that I'm married because I have 2 children, but my partner and I decided that marriage was not what we wanted to do.
I had a son, and he was born at 22 weeks gestation, and he lived for 3 hours, and then he passed away. So his birth and death in our life has really made our perspective on being parents and being a mom something special.
I think everybody's unique. Everybody's got a story. Everybody's got different experiences. Everybody's got... No 2 people could ever be the same.
So tell me after watching that you would market to each of those people exactly the same way, right? Like each of those stories is, some of them were tiny, like I'm really bubbly, and others were, the woman talking about her eating disorder, or that woman who talked about her child passing away. And these are massively powerful stories that once you start to think about the people you're marketing to as people, you can get into their hearts and their motivations and truly understand what it is that drives them and what it is that drives them to make decisions that they do. Your market isn't a mass of people with the same characteristics. I know that you know this, right? You're thinking that it's obvious, of course not. But sometimes it's easier, especially when you're on a deadline, to just say, you know what, Facebook, women between 35 and 45, go. And then you hope that maybe somebody is going to scroll past and be like, oh yes, this speaks to me. That isn't how you should be running social media. So I encourage you, after I just said about how people hate talking on the phone, pick up the phone, call your customers, actually ask them some questions. And don't ask them the usual stuff like, hello, what social networks are you on? That's a nice icebreaker, but really what you want to get into are the interesting questions. So what kind of phone do you have? What makes you share a post on Facebook? What is the last charity you donated to? Why did you pick the car that you drive? What do you like about your city? What do you like about your neighborhood? Ask some things that will get you under the hood, and then you begin to understand your market's motivations for making the decisions that they do. So for example, we did this for a client of ours, and it turns out that nurses in Alberta, this could be true elsewhere, please let me know if it is, they joined Twitter just to follow food trucks so they can follow them around at different events. So there's this cabal of nurses on Twitter, and they don't talk to anybody, and they just follow like 20 different food truck accounts. Although there is an app, but they prefer the Twitter, and we also asked about that, and this is what they do. That's how they use Twitter. So, okay, great. We said to the client, hey, if you want nurses to come to your event, invite some food trucks. I don't know how we would have found that out any other way but picking up the phone, right? And so I am the person at Kickpoint who is most comfortable talking on the phone, so often I get to do the phone interviews. And honestly, they're really fun. Like, pick up the phone, talk to your customers. you're going to learn some cool stuff. And if you want to be a little bit towards the creepy spectrum of things, Full Contact has a fantastic API where you can put in a bunch of people's email addresses, for example, your best customers, and then it returns all their social profiles. Full Contact has about a 60 to 70% success rate, lower if you're in Canada. Like most things, we don't get all the cool stuff in Canada, but it's great. And I believe it's been talked about before, at least a couple of times. So if you're not using the Full Contact API, I really do recommend checking it out. It'll also be able to tell you, if you put in a database of, say, all your clients' email addresses, it'll tell you what social networks they belong to. One thing to note, LinkedIn, a lot of people don't use their work email addresses for LinkedIn because, you know, that's what they do. So just take LinkedIn results with a grain of salt. As with all things LinkedIn, they hate analytics, and we hate them for it. But you'll be surprised at what's capturing your audience's attention. Grab those social profiles after Full Contact, toss them into Rival IQ, build a landscape, start to do some analysis. Next is analytics. So this is where you separate out the strategic metrics from the tactical metrics. Remember I mentioned that earlier. So if you weren't here 2 years ago, my talk was called Prove Your Value, and it was about reporting to clients and not talking about rankings ever. I would really recommend that you watch that if you haven't, because I don't have enough time, or else the red light will start flashing. I don't have enough time to do that talk again. And it is a good companion to this analytics part, because strategic metrics are the metrics that move the business needle. Right? Strategic metrics are the things that keep you in business. Tactical metrics are the stuff that we report on as digital marketers. So strategic metrics are stuff like customer lifetime value, or ticket sales, or referrals from clients, right? And tactical metrics are engagement rate and bounce rate and likes and that kind of stuff. And digital marketers are really, really bad at reporting on just the tactical metrics and not the strategic ones. And it's because, well, every tool in the world gives us the data for the tactical metrics, and then you try to figure out the strategic metrics, and it's really hard, right? Like now there's math. I don't want to do math. I went into marketing to avoid stats. Well, surprise. You know, and not every company has a marketing scientist hanging around who can interpret this kind of data for you. So try really hard to not do that, because what ends up happening is if you focus too much on the tactical metrics, you end up on this terrible hamster wheel of if we post more, we get more engagement, so post more so we get more engagement, and then you shove out updates as quickly as possible. You got to make sure all the buffer boxes are filled at all times, right? And you're not able to take the time to think about whether or not that post is actually going to resonate. More posts, more engagement. That's, whoa, slow it down. And as well, Rand mentioned this in his opening talk, like how much of your site traffic is via social media? He said that the average from SimilarWeb is 5%, which is, I was encouraged to hear that, because we have several clients where, you know, when we start working with them, the amount of traffic that they get from social media is 5%. This is pretty common. And we had a client who was consistently top in the Rival IQ landscape when it came to stuff like engagement rate, number of followers, right? So from the tactical aspect, they looked fantastic. From the strategic aspect, they looked terrible. So instead, now they've increased social media traffic to their website by 280% over the last 2 months by following the principles of SMUX. And they're actually able to track social media traffic to ticket sales. And although, you know, sometimes it doesn't necessarily work all that well, analytics tools are part of the problem. They don't make it easy to tie down specific posts to outcomes, right? Attribution is a massive problem in social media, and I think, in fact, social media metrics are getting harder to measure, not easier, right? Let's talk about dark social, right? Look at the continued growth of dark social posts. We're seeing dark social account for anywhere to 20 to 60% of a client's traffic. So being able to analyze your results in some sort of meaningful, strategic way just became that much more important, because really you have to prove your value, you have to prove what you're doing, or else you're not going to be around for very long in your job. You know, so for example, we have a client who we've been working with on getting their Ticketmaster to report properly on, you know, somebody clicked an ad on Facebook, went to Ticketmaster, bought a ticket, it says direct. Why? And we talked to Ticketmaster, like, oh, sorry, we can't help you. So if there's any Ticketmaster experts in the room, come see me, please. But this is the problem with attribution tools, especially if you have to deal with any third-party tools, like Ticketmaster, like Eventbrite, right? So you end up defaulting to those tactical metrics because you can't report on the strategic ones because the tools have made it too hard. But at the end of it, tactical metrics don't pay the rent. Platform is the next piece, and this is when you ask yourself, is this the right place for this post? And is this the right type of post? You know, Ross just talked about this quite a bit. It's not just Twitter versus Facebook, but is this a video, a survey, a blog, a combination of the above? We need to ask ourselves better questions before we just start diving into social media. For example, Channel 4 News in the UK has done extremely well on Facebook. They've grown their monthly video views from 5 million to 200 million, and they did this providing good SMUX. They have square videos, which is a nice compromise between vertical and horizontal. They caption everything, and how they present the posts are really effective. I recommend that you check out their channel because they have some excellent stuff going on there. And they've opened up 2 new channels as well for long-form interview stuff that didn't quite fit in with their main Facebook platform. So they're respecting the platform and moving things to the right place, so they're respecting their audience. If you go back to Rival IQ and you look at that market landscape, well, you look at top posts and say, okay, so obviously video, clearly. I couldn't blow up the screenshot anymore, unfortunately, but you can see there was one video post that had the most engagement out of everything. And this is out of the MozCon speaker landscape. So people really love video. And so obviously more video. So you don't want to over-focus on engagement, but engagement can give you those hints that help you make decisions on what you're going to put out. And ask yourself as well, are you even on the right platforms? Like, does your Facebook page suck? Is it just literally a waste of money? So Eat24, remember how they broke up with Facebook back in March 2014? Because they said, you know what, Facebook, we are done with you. You make us pay for every post. Only 2% of our fans see our post. Forget it, we're done. And the last post they had on their Facebook page, which still exists, was their breakup letter to Facebook. And after they broke up with them, they had their best year ever because all those marketing dollars that were tied up in promoting Facebook crap was actually focused on real customers, and then they got bought by Yelp. I'm not saying that if you delete your Facebook page, Yelp will buy your page, buy your company, but it's a pretty convincing argument over here. Message, saying the right thing in the right way. Last year, talked about brand voice. I recommend watching that as well. I feel like this talk is sort of Dana's previous MozCon talks mashed together. I talked last year about brand and creating a brand voice. Do that, but also use that voice, please, across all channels, including social media. Use your keyword research. Consider the voice of the market. Go back to Rival IQ, look at those top posts again, and search the post content and see if they're using the same words that came up in your keyword research that you did for SEO purposes. Just start typing it in, and it tells you the number of posts that came back. So MozCon speakers, 1,190 posts. I almost had it right. So out of all those posts that they made, 29 of them mentioned the word SEO, 23 of them mentioned the word search, 9 mentioned social, 45 mentioned the word content. And I could have kept going, because I wanted to find like 100 posts, but they were really diverse. You can export all this data from Rival IQ into a CSV, do fancy data slicing and dicing with it, toss it in Tableau and do some cool stuff, but people like to talk to people who are like them. Just look at social media. So how can your post make your market feel comfortable? Are you using the right words when you talk to people? And are you inclusive? Consider if the post itself is inclusive. Are you drawing people in? Are you setting yourself apart? Do you say things like, get your tickets now, or do you say, see you there? Which seems very simplistic, but it makes a huge difference in how people respond and engage with the post. Also, they're more likely to comment on the post if you actually say, see you there. Intent. Intent is a crucial piece of this. Let's go back to that poor hamster wheel. This is our social media manager. So your goal in social media shouldn't be to hit your posting targets. If you're posting X number of times a day, and that's like one of your KPIs for your job, come talk to me. We would like to help you fix that. Like, I'll give you tactics for your boss, especially in-house marketers. I feel like sometimes you end up getting stuck with these really weird goals that are not meaningful in these ways. But for the rest of you, I refuse to believe that the goal of every social post is higher engagement. What are you actually contributing to this noise? Ask yourself why before you post. Why are you sharing that video? Why are you tweeting out that link? And there's a big trend in articles lately. I've spent a lot of time, on Medium, which is really also a social network if you think about it. A lot of people talking about getting away from the desk and spending that 20% time thinking. Well, why not spend that 20% time when you're composing a social post to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Take that time before you hit post to ask yourself what the goal is. What is the intent of this? And consider all of your interactions, not just the broadcast kind, but the engagement kind, the customer service kind. And why do you make me take my complaint to a direct message immediately? Are you embarrassed that I'm mad at your company? Is this happening often enough that you want to hide it away? Maybe if you're U-Haul, for example. So this is my business partner, Jen, and she went to the Women's World Cup in Vancouver and rented a place through Airbnb. And when they showed up, the Airbnb host had given away her reservation and said, oh, sorry, no room for you. And it was busy in Vancouver for the Women's World Cup. There were no hotels. So you can see Jen's increasingly desperate tweets to Airbnb about this. And she DM'd them their reservation code. That's all they asked for, was a reservation code or email. And then she called in, and they already knew her backstory, knew where she was, knew that she had tweeted at them, and put them up in an $800 a night hotel on Airbnb's tab. So while Airbnb is not a perfect company and have other problems, that was pretty cool. So good job on intent and also following through in a public way and not just making them take it to DM. So, and also think, is your intent even possible? So nothing is crappier than tweeting out, enter our contest. And a lot of people use Twitter, for example, on their cell phones, and then I go to the page and it's not responsive. Like, why do you hate me, right? Or they want you to fill in your address, and it's a US-only thing, for example, and they've got every country in there, starting with Afghanistan, selected as the default, right? Like, that's a lot of scrolling. Why are you making me do that? Is your form nice? Are you making it easy for people to do the thing you want them to do? Like think about that part of it, too. So, who here has a dog? How many dog people are there? Interesting, less than I thought, okay. So BarkBox, I'm sure there's at least a couple of BarkBox users in here. When they send out the BarkBox, which is a monthly box of dog toys, they're really adorable. I don't even have a dog, and I like BarkBox. They include a little card that says, make sure to tweet it or post about it with the hashtag BarkBoxDay. So this is a screenshot of Instagram with BarkBox Day. People post about it a lot. The problem is that BarkBox doesn't comment or like any of these posts. I don't know why, but it's there. So BarkBox, if you're here, please get on this massive marketing opportunity. Huge amounts of engagement. People love, I know the internet is made for cats, not so much for dogs, but you're missing out on this massive marketing opportunity. And the last element is play. Play is why Snapchat has more users than Twitter. Period. Like, why would you hang around a boring place like Twitter when you can turn your face into a taco on Snapchat, right? Like, yeah, sorry, Snapchat, man. I know you don't like it. I made a joke that when I turn 40, Snapchat is just gonna uninstall itself from my phone. But I'm really bad at Snapchat, actually. I barely understand it, but I get why people like it. Just because I don't know how to do things with it doesn't mean that, my market doesn't. So, did you know that 224 million people turn their face into a taco? Right? That's more people who've ever eaten a Taco Bell. That was on Cinco de Mayo. Or more people used Gatorade's Super Bowl sponsored Snapchat than actually watched the Super Bowl. And it was the 50th anniversary. I mean, it wasn't a good game. It was kind of sad. But a lot of people use this filter. It was funny. The other thing is that the average user plays with a Snapchat lens, and this is what these funny filter things are called, or Snapchat lenses. They play with them for 20 seconds. Like, the first 5 seconds of a YouTube video ad are spent staring at the skip button, waiting for it to turn. right? That's 15 more seconds than you have. I bet you if YouTube did eye tracking, that's what they would see. And really, like, everybody wants to play, right? Like, hello, we are surrounded by video games. This entire conference is play-themed. At the heart of marketing is emotion, and play has some of the strongest emotions, right? Like, we're gonna get a Lego Roger, you guys. Come on. Play gives you permission to goof off. And of course, we've all learned, these studies, that brief play breaks results in better productivity at work, which is how I personally justify checking out the fantasy football forum on Reddit pretty regularly at work. So, and really, like, people just want to play. If they're on social media, they don't want to be marketed to, they just want to have a good time. But play is more than creepy taco faces, right? Play may seem like the easiest element of SMUX to get right, but it's harder to be playful without trying to be like your dad coming downstairs while you're all, secretly drinking beer, and he's like, "Hey kids," you're like, "Go away, Dad," right? Like, you don't want to be like that on social media. And I'm sure many of you are thinking, my industry is too boring. I cannot play. So, challenge accepted. You're a funeral home. How do you make that playful? This is how you make it playful. So, I found out about these people because we did a fax Christmas card one year, because I found out we could send out faxes through our phone system. So we made a fax Christmas card and sent it out, and we tweeted out, "Hey, YEG," it's the hashtag for Edmonton, "do you want a fax? Tell us your fax number." And not only did they tweet us their number, but then they explained why they use faxes so much. Very educational. Like, these people are interesting, I'm gonna follow them. They are a poke stop. They also have several gyms right near their location. I spend a lot of time hanging out in the funeral home parking lot. The other thing that happens is they have North America's largest fringe festival across the street for 2 weeks every summer. So this year they decided, let's do tours. Why not, right? And frankly, like, who wouldn't want to see inside a funeral home, right? It's kind of cool. So they did tours, and if you look at this from an engagement perspective, it got 1 retweet from the actual Old Strathcona, which is the business association, and some random person liked it, and that's it, right? So from an engagement standpoint, it looks terrible, but oh, hey, look, they're in the paper with a link. Yeah, a link from the paper is amazing. They put the fun in funeral, and they actually do. The couple who owns this funeral home say that their eyes met across a crowded morgue. They're really funny. And so this is how you can make your industry interesting. If these people can make funeral homes funny, you can do it too. I believe in you. I think you can do it. So now that you've got the 6 elements of SMUX, I want you to approach SMUX not from a Venn diagram perspective, but from a building block perspective. Think about the 3 pieces of SMUX, the 3 elements that are going to be easiest for you to nail on a consistent basis. And then when you walk out of here, just work on those 3 for a while. And then when you've got those 3, then start on another one and another one until you've got all 6. It's called practice for a reason. You're not going to get it right away. That's okay. And not every post is going to be the SMUXiest post in the world, but eventually you will get there with all 6 elements. And before I finish off, I have an example of something that a client of ours did that we felt, and they did this totally on their own. We'd only just started working with them, and they came up with this idea and ran with it, and we thought it was so fantastic, so I want to talk about it today. They're the Edmonton Community Foundation, and if you're not familiar with community foundations, basically their job is to give away money. Well, they get money from people, and then they give it away to other people. And they work on mostly endowment funds, which are forever funds that people set up, and they use the interest as donations to charitable organizations. So that means that you can always give money forever. And they're really cool, and if you have a community foundation in your community, I recommend setting up an endowment fund with them. Cleveland is a great example of another. Basically, Cleveland was saved by the Cleveland Community Foundation. Check it out. So they have 3 challenges. First, community engagement. Most people do not think about giving away their money until they are almost dead. Funeral home, people might want to get in on it. Anyway, so challenge 2, charity engagement. Keeping the charities that they work with engaged outside of their regular granting cycles. So they only give away money at certain times of the year, and how do you get them excited at other times? And the third thing is showcasing the wide variety of charities that they support, because the general public doesn't necessarily know that instead of giving a donation to the food bank every year, why not set up an endowment fund for the food bank and then give them food bank money for 100 years, for example. So they came up with this contest on Facebook. No contest platform, it is just whoever liked the post the most got it. Charities were asked to submit a meme that explained their mission. Not all the charities understood what a meme was. Just gonna put that out there. In fact, the charity who won, it was not a meme. It was just like white text on a picture, like the non-meme. But it's okay. It's okay. They got the most likes. They actually ended up picking 2 that one was really a meme. One of my favorites is down in the bottom right-hand corner. I don't know if you guys can read it, but it says, "Fighting to protect Alberta's caribou." I'm liking it. That's funny. Yeah. But the best part is that all these charities came together to submit these memes. They did it on April 1st, just kind of an anti-April Fool's contest. And it got not just massive engagement, but people who were totally unaware of the Community Foundation from a, I support this charity perspective, or from a, I'm a charity, I need to get on this perspective, found out about it because it was funny, it had a good message, the intent was right, the platform was right, like, it was all the elements just came together into this fantastic contest. And now they're gonna do it every year, which is great. This is actually my favorite did not win meme out of it. Really, wildlife rehabilitators, they just pick up poop all day. It's true. Yeah. So, when your SMUX comes together, it's really about empathy. Your customers become more than page views, they're real people, right? Think back to that video. And you feel like you know something about these women now, even though you just saw a short, brief story about them on the screen. When your site has a 1% conversion rate, that means you failed 99% of the people who came there. So how do you make that better? How do you stop failing that audience and doing this scattershot approach and hoping that something sticks? One of the most flat-out fun Twitter accounts I follow is for a pharmacy in Halifax. I think Ross has been there. It's called Scotia Pharmacy. They break every single social media rule. They tweet in all caps all the time. They make up ridiculous hashtags constantly. They were joking about like having the follower of the beast when they got to 666 followers, and actually tricked my business partner into becoming the follower of the beast. I just kept unfollowing them until they hit it. So yeah, this is, and the stuff that they tweet is funny. Like if you download the deck later and really look at what they have here in these student essentials, there's some good stuff. And this is what they're like. And when I go to Halifax, I'm totally going to this pharmacy just because they're so awesome on Twitter. So please follow Scotia Pharmacy. Remember that you can do crazy stuff and be awesome. And we see, if you Google social media tips, right? You see articles like this all the time. So 13 social media rules you should never break. 19 rules for this and 21 rules for that. The only rules you need to follow on social is keep it in your brand voice, do your research, spend time being social, be smuxy. Let's break this crap, forget about it, and do something that's right for you and your market. These rules don't necessarily apply to you. They apply to the generic, boring accounts that you're going to utterly crush after this presentation. So, are you ready? Let's break some rules. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm told we might be almost out of time, but yeah, we'll. Oh yeah, there we go.
It didn't start, so I don't know.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. We'll ask some quick fire questions. A couple of people asked about dark social, so
Yes.
give us just the lowdown on that.
Dark social. Okay, so dark social is when somebody's using a secure connection, like Instagram, and they go to your website that you have and you didn't put UTM parameters in the link, and so it doesn't report or refer. So the best way to do this, and there's actually, if you go into Google Analytics and you go to custom, there is a report that you can import that shows you dark social posts. And I can tweet out a link later too. We've created a custom dark social report. But basically it's direct traffic that starts at a page other than the home page. And there's a couple different ways people can get there, right? If you type on your phone and it shows a page right away and you tap that, that counts as direct. But like if they're visiting a page, it's a really long URL and there's a big spike in traffic right about the time you paid for a Facebook ad, probably dark social. And it happens because people talk about how the internet needs to be more secure, and that means that we can't track things. And it's basically not provided, continuing to harass us in every aspect of our lives. Thanks, Google.
Another quick question was someone asked about the phone calls you were making to customers, clients, trying to get inside the head a bit more. Love it. What's a number that's enough people to feel like you've actually learned some things that aren't sort of single data point aberrations?
That really depends on the size of your industry or of like where you want to grow. If you're a small business, you could pick 10 really good customers and just ask them, and that would be fine. If you're a huge corporation, this will be a project you will do over many months, but don't do focus groups. And I know you think, I could just kill like 6 birds with one stone and do a focus group. Focus groups suck because there's always that one guy who just takes over and they have a lot of opinions and they sway the group over to their opinion. So don't do focus groups, do one-on-ones. Like, I really don't do focus groups. Yeah, and it depends. Eventually, you will get to a point where you feel like you're getting a lot of the same answers repeated again and again. Probably time to cut it off at that point.